All right. So I'm going to pick up where I left off. Welcome back to Energetically You. I still haven't decided if I'm going to publish this as two episodes or have my amazing friend Nate edit these together. But essentially, Zoom just crashed, and I think the universe was sending me a message that it was getting a bit long. So I am going to make this part two of my journey to become a wellness and mindset coach. I was just telling you how I shifted into teaching only privately, and I really enjoyed that for multiple reasons. One, it gave me more freedom because if I wanted to go travel, I didn't have to feel bad that I was closing my physical studio down or letting down, like shifting the schedule. I could always agree on a week to week or a month to month basis when I wanted to work. And I was also able to charge a lot more because they were highly personalized, custom classes based on what these women wanted to learn or the level of fitness they had. Sometimes I was teaching older clients that had a lot of limitations and they needed a very specific class to the point where, they had no other options. There was not a class they could have gone to here. And then I also started teaching a lot of prenatal yoga. And so I taught one of my dear friends, Daniela Rochin, yoga and eventually prenatal. And then she was in the process of looking for, her next move too. So she signed up for the IIN, which is the Institute of Integrated Nutrition Health Coaching Certification program. They're based out of New York. They are accredited through the University of New York if you wish to get that step done. And she was kind of surprised that I hadn't heard of this organization. And honestly, I hadn't, but she started and then needed, sort of guinea pig clients and wanted me to be one. And like I said, I'd gotten a little bit back into teaching yoga. I was still, in the early years of being a new mom, and I had not got back to any sort of semblance of quality sleep. And I was just sort of self-medicating throughout the day with copious amounts of coffee, in air quotes, healthy but sugary snacks, like healthy sweet, but still sweet snacks, AKA, anything with chocolate. And then in the afternoons, I was winding down, again, in air quotes, with a glass or two of red wine and on rinse and repeat. And I wasn't really exercising other than when I was teaching yoga or doing my own practice. And I just wasn't happy. I mean, I felt like I was surviving, this whole surviving versus thriving thing. I was definitely not thriving. I was arguably barely surviving. I was not feeling myself. And what was making me depressed is what I seem to think, maybe I was never going to feel as good as I used to feel pre-children. Maybe my life was going to look completely different. I was going to feel completely different. My body was going to feel different. I was never going to get, I fantasize about getting 8 hours of sleep. And inevitably, every time I had the opportunity, I would be on a weekend escape where I'd be in a nice hotel, even by myself, I would still wake up sort of every 3 or 4 hours, and it would just drive me crazy. So started working with Daniela. She was my health coach. And even within a couple months of working with her, I was obsessed. I just absolutely loved the process, loved how it was so all encompassing of so many aspects of our lives. And I could see that it was this perfect marriage of, all of the global politics that I'm interested in, anything about food systems and, quote unquote, sick care versus healthcare, all of these massive, massive systems that are in place that are the root cause of the just explosion in chronic lifestyle diseases. So there was all of the fun political side, if you will, that always gets me riled up. There was, all of the holistic knowledge that I had learned through my yoga teacher training in terms of Ayurvedic medicine or healing or thinking, the system, the way to eat, and then it just got layered on many more layers of the things that I learned in the certification. So long story, I'm not sure, I think I jumped a step there, but so I worked with Daniela, and I kept working with her for about 6 months, I think, maybe it was even 8. But I quickly signed up myself to take the certification. And first thing Daniela had said to me was, you know what? I think you should start a morning routine. And I just thought she was absolutely crazy. Well, I just thought that, she's 10 years younger than I am. She at that point didn't have children. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm going to get up earlier. Like, the problem is I'm not getting enough sleep. And she's like, just bear with me. And so sure enough, she had me, switch out. I was having like this late night snack with my Netflix that was essentially like not good for my digestion. I was having like spicy peanuts and chocolate chips and like a, quote unquote healthy-ish trail mix, but it really wasn't at all. And I was drinking coffee like way into the afternoon. So she like really reeled in my caffeine intake and then had me set the alarm. At first, I think it was only 10 minutes earlier. And I started getting up to meditate for 5 minutes, do 3 yoga stretches, to scrape my tongue, gargle with oil, which is called oil pulling. It's an Ayurvedic detoxification technique. And yeah, that was it. And she's like, just try it for 2 weeks and then tell me how you feel. And so that's what I did. And that's also how I, to this day, work with clients. I suggest they implement 2 to 3 things over a 2-week period, and then they come back and report like what really resonated, what do they think really helped them, and then the things that didn't resonate or they didn't try because they didn't like the idea or whatever. And we move on and we keep building new healthy layers on, and inevitably stripping away the unhealthy ones in the process. But it's not, the action is on adding healthier things in, and then gradually the unhealthy habits just naturally fall away. And so all that to say, got my certification to be a health coach, started inviting my own guinea pig clients into the mix, which at first were, family and friends. My mom, bless her soul, was one of my first clients. And she insisted on paying me, and she really, shifted several things dramatically in her life. And yeah, so that whole experience. And then I wanted a girlfriend here who had also done, I think, she was on her radar, but long story short, she basically signed up at a very similar time to do the certification of INN right after me. She recommended me this other 2 programs that I eventually did back to back. One was to become an expert in detox with a woman named Eva Jorda. She's in Madrid. So the whole thing was in Spanish. So the challenge there to myself is I had to, in order to finish her program to become a detox expert, you had to publish your book on detox in Amazon to pass, then get the certification. So, I just loved that was built into the program, and it was going to teach me how to do all that. And inevitably I did publish one in Spanish, and then I translated it and published another one in English. And so for me, those were 2 huge dreams. Like, if you'd ever asked me if I was going to have, I always wanted to be a writer and publish a book, and I'm still going to be publishing one that's more my story. But I published 2 books, arguably, and I wrote my first one in Spanish, which was just insane. Like, obviously I had an editor, but I wrote it myself. And, it was just like a huge accomplishment to do that in my second language. So, and then I signed up also to get a certification as a plant-based chef, because I could see that I personally wanted to eat more and more plant-based, and have that information to share with my clientele. Because, as you know, I firmly believe, as much as we can get into a discussion about diets and the diet, dogma, culture wars around diets, nobody can tell you that eating more fruits and vegetables and legumes and nuts and seeds is a bad idea for your health. So I wanted to have mostly like the biggest challenge for me at that point, because I had been, remember back 15 years earlier, I had really started eating vegetarian back then, but I ate a lot of cheese, and I ate eggs, and I ate yogurt here and there. Again, I never really went back to milk, but I just needed some tools on how to, for me and my family, have more dairy alternatives in the vegan diet. And I really just believe that they're really great tools to have, how to prepare more plant-based meals. So did all that. And I started, I had many, many clients at that point, but, I was really focusing still on people that ultimately wanted to be healthier, mostly from the perspective of, eating better. And I really enjoyed inspiring people to eat less sugar, eat less or no gluten, eat more plant-based. And, I kind of became the mom known here as, how they refer to me behind my back. I know through friends, but, some basically the moms that were interested in my knowledge on how to make healthy desserts and healthy lunches for their kids that were, refined sugar free and fine flour free, and more plant-based, were moms that had children, like either they themselves had gone through major health problems such as cancer, or they had a child that was having, behavioral issues or health issues, and their doctor has suggested they need to eat less sugar, less gluten. And here at where we're based in the world, there were very few tools, or, very, very little information on this. So together with my friend Ross, we were doing these courses, and it was a good experience. But I could also see, like, back to, teaching yoga, all of these things, like I really loved it. And I could see going sort of deeper down that rabbit hole and like really specializing in something within that niche, if you will. But I was really so much more fascinated by just, helping women in a more broader sense to, shift their perspective on what was possible for themselves, because ultimately that is what I had been doing all of these years, little by little, like just taking the leap of faith of moving, like selling all my stuff and moving to another country takes a certain amount of trust in your intuition. Right. And then I'm going to open a yoga studio, even though I have no idea like what that looks like or what I need, or I have no business background, and, just like messy action. And then while I was doing all these courses, I also started a health and wellness magazine here locally called Alcachofa, which is artichoke in Spanish. And it also was a relative success. I mean, it paid for itself in terms of all the costs to produce it. We actually printed it, if you can imagine. I'm going to be sharing on social media in the next couple of months an image of all of the, I have about a dozen copies of every single, oh my goodness, what is it called? Every single, it's not episode, edition of the magazine. So I produced it for 2 years. I was the editor-in-chief. At the very beginning, I designed it. I did it all myself. The second year, I was able, through having enough paid publicity, to have a team of pros do it. And then I tried to make it a digital magazine, have it on issue, because let's face it, we were all reading, physical magazines less and less. It made less sense. And then I could see that the trend was never going to be, because I personally wasn't, and I didn't know anybody that was reading like entire cover to cover magazines in a digital format. Everything was moving to short form blogs. I still didn't see on the horizon quite how powerful and important video was going to become at that point. But I just, I had learned a lot. I learned a lot about making connections and just kind of like putting yourself out there and asking for people to collaborate, and inviting them into the project, and the whole design thing, the writing, the editing, all of that, translating everything. I did multiple, I think for a year, we did it in English and Spanish. It was just like, throwing spaghetti at the wall, if you will, in terms of trying to make things work. And part of entrepreneurship is being very intentional about looking at those things that don't work as just opportunities to learn and shift and pivot and keep going, fail forward, fail fast. And so it was kind of a hard decision to say goodbye to the magazine. And that to this day, I think it's still, I think the website's been taken down, but you can go look at the handle on Instagram. It's at Alcachofa. It might be Alcachofa MX, but anyway, it was kind of like a bittersweet thing, but I was quickly publishing my own book after that. And so then March 2020 hits, and my plan for 2020 was to take like the entire luxurious year to figure out how to shift my coaching business to a virtual coaching business, because our plan as a family has always been to, at some point, relocate, more than likely back to Canada when our kids are a little bit older. And so I wanted to have a business that was flourishing and capable of going with me wherever I go in the world. And just the flexibility of it being independent of geographic location in the meantime, if I want to travel, and, setting my own hours and all of that. And so instead of having a long, luxurious year of calmly figuring out how to get it online, the pandemic hits and I lose all of my local clients because we can't see each other. And people here, well, arguably in many parts of the world, thought it was really weird to like have appointments over Zoom because they hadn't introduced Zoom into their houses or as classrooms yet. And so it seemed really strange to pay me like the same rate to not see me, not physically be in my office and get the whole experience. And so I basically lost all my clients and quickly invested in my first coaching program. And today, it was like under $2,000, but for me, it was like the most that I'd spent on myself, arguably since paying for tuition in university, like 20 years earlier. No, not 20, 15 years earlier. And it just seemed like this out of like insane idea. But that course taught me how to create my own first course. And I launched it in June, and I had 3 or 4 people sign up, and it was like the start. It was the start of Megan Swan Wellness. And it was essentially taking a lot of the things that I'd been doing, like through the magazine, through the classes, and, really targeting other moms, helping them teach themselves, and then offer, ideal, but also fun and delicious options to their own kids. And I really enjoyed that first round, but I could also see that, one, I wasn't an expert in childhood nutrition, for example, but 2, I just wasn't as obsessed about the idea of helping. I really enjoyed the more personal one-on-one coaching with women that help them like completely transform, first by focusing on prioritizing their own well-being on a whole other level in terms of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness. Then they became so much more clear-headed, confident, and empowered to make major changes in their lives and to, accompany them through that whole trajectory and help them, guide them through the process of, be it, leave a toxic relationship or change careers or, move countries or, these major life changes. And so that's where my passion lies. And the mindset piece, if you will, came in the second year, or even it was the end of 2020, I signed up for a mastermind that was focused on abundant mindset. And that was pivotal for me in that investment was more than I had ever imagined. Again, I've since invested way more, but at that point, spending 10 grand on a coaching container for 6 months just was a little kooky. But it just, elevated my vision for myself. Like if I was betting on myself, right? I made that bet that, I put it on a credit card and I quickly made it back. And that was because my energy shifted, my vision of what was possible for myself, the way in which I showed up in the world shifted, because I had this whole other toolbox of ways to rewrite limiting beliefs, to manage imposter syndrome, to manage your fear that comes up when you start going after a bigger goal or a bigger dream. So that is where I will leave the story for now. But in the coming weeks, I will be sharing other tidbits of more of the nitty gritty of how I managed to shift and continue to shift, because, what your limiting beliefs are at the beginning of your journey, they don't really change. They just become, they pop up and it becomes a limiting belief. The fear like bubbles up when every time you're like getting to the next level and the next level and the next level, you're, the same types of fears, like, who am I to start this? Or who am I to think that I can do this? And that's where the mindset work comes in. So, and I could also see that really helping women like completely change their perspective on how important prioritizing themselves and their own wellness is. There's also a lot of mindset work there. Essentially, it's an identity shift. It's an identity shift into, who do I want to be right now? How do I want to show up in the world right now? How do I want to feel right now? But also in terms of longevity and how important is it? Like, how are you going to be showing up in your 80s? And how, do you want to be healthy and present for your grandchildren or potentially your great grandchildren? But let's face it, with the way things are now, you might be lucky to get to know very well your grandchildren. So that is the journey. And I think it's absolutely perfectly imperfect. Every little thing along the way taught me something that contributes to who I am today. I really believe in this golden thread of synchronicity, and really looking at all of these doors that seem like boulders, like red doors slammed in your face. There was always another door that opened because you were forced to sort of pause and look around and find another path. And feeling empowered from that ability to shift, to pivot, to adapt, like that is the entrepreneurial spirit. And I would argue that it's like a spiritualism spirit, in that, I believe that, my path has been revealed to me over time. And that's a choice. I choose to look at the world that way, instead of looking at, sitting in some sort of victim mentality and being sad about all the things that didn't work out, or the businesses that didn't make me millions or anything like that. Like these ideas that I had that, maybe I could focus on the fact they didn't pan out how I thought I would, or I could focus on all the things I learned and how it just expanded my ability to hold more and more unknown. It expanded my ability to just believe in myself, to go after it, to just, start taking messy action and learn along the way. And yeah, ultimately now I'm just so empowered, so in love with the process of helping other women do this, to get where they either never imagined they would be, or kind of deep down as a little girl, had this dream of being a writer, or being, publishing a book, or, being their own boss, and being 100% in control of their lifestyle, when they can travel, when they're working, all of those things, particularly as women and mothers. It is so powerful to have that freedom. And honestly, it's where I see most of the world shifting. There's going to be, the traditional jobs, I think, are going to be around for, for sure another 50 years from there on. It's so hard to say where we're going to be. Are we even going to be on this planet? The jobs that my kids are going to have, I'm sure haven't even been invented yet. And I think having this ability to sit powerfully in a place and be okay with the unknown is a superpower moving forward. Essentially, having an entrepreneurial spirit, or being, because an entrepreneurial spirit is quite contradictory to how the education system works, how we were educated in schools. It's there's one way to do things. It's a system, follow the rules, stay in the lines. And entrepreneurial spirit is, you know what? No, I know it doesn't make sense, but I have this gut feeling and I'm just going to go for it. And, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. What did I learn from it? Amazing. Take that with me. Let's move on. Next thing. And ultimately for me, it's just so much freedom to, design the career that I want, essentially. And all the things that go around with the freedom to design your own career, and what success, and define success how you, on your own terms. For me, it is, a very small part of it is financial. Mostly it's the freedom to keep living the lifestyle that I have, in terms of not being tied to any one geographical location, in terms of having a lot of freedom as to when I work, how many hours I work, at what pace I work, who I work with, and what I can focus on, and how, essentially my work is so rewarding. I'm so grateful and honored every day to work with the women I do, and just feel so blessed that they find me, and sometimes I find them. And it becomes ultimately this sort of like lifelong relationship, friendship. And it's just, yeah. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for listening. And if you want more of this sort of storytelling side of me, let me know. And I will share even more nitty-gritty of my journey over the years. And yeah, thanks for being here. If you really are enjoying the podcast, the best thing you can do to support me is to share it and tag me on social media. Leave a 5-star review in iTunes or whatever platform you're listening on, and pass it on to, send the link to someone that you think really would benefit from hearing this story. And I will forever be grateful. So thank you.